There is just something about the Krytac KRISS Vector that feels like you're going to war with an encyclopedia. KRISS Vector is also like the one kid that needs to be different. You see, when it comes to traditional close your eyes and sprays, they all seem to have a relatively similar understanding of one another, and they follow simple rules in physics. That was until the KRISS Vector decided to tamper with the universe's rules of ergonomics, form the most diabolical 180 with its fire control unit, take the entire study behind the bullpup system and basically tell it to go screw itself, and develop the recoil system that drops it harder than any chick I've ever seen at the bar. And after putting the entire thing inside my cart, taking it out again, putting it back in, taking it out, and finally finding one at a solid price on Hop-Up app, this is my full review on the Krytac gas blowback KRISS Vector. During this review, we'll be putting the Krytac KRISS Vector through some extensive testing, all done by a professional LARPer that loves to run around with BB toys in the woods. Take everything with a grain of salt, like this review, because I actually picked this entire thing up at a solid deal used on the Hop-Up app. After closely examining the internals and externals, cleaning the entire thing down, and then relubricating it, I will say it's in pretty solid condition. Now, if the KRISS Vector looks at all familiar to you, chances are it's because you've primaried it in a video game once or twice, or you've seen it in some sort of a sci-fi or futuristic movie, because it seems like producers just simply can't get enough of the KRISS Vector. And like I said before, there is two things that the KRISS Vector does very well. First of all is CQB, and second of all, disrespect the bullpup's design entirely, because where something like the bullpup was designed to have a long internal barrel in a small package, the KRISS Vector basically said, up yours, and it designed itself to have an extremely small package, if you can get past it feeling like a phone book, and still have a extremely short barrel, because it has the mags loaded, well, right behind the front end of the thing. Now, believe it or not, finding itself in futuristic sci-fi style films makes a lot of sense, because it also has a futuristic recoil system, where just like the real steel counterpart, the Airsoft variant here functions just the same, which is super cool, as any platform that you would fire in real steel. The blowback system would recoil into the rear of the receiver. The KRISS Vector does the opposite. There's a reason there's this massive, chunky, rectangular box right in front of the FCU. And that's because the box here is the recoil system, and the recoil system is designed to drive itself downwards. So it actually arcs back from the center of the receiver and down into the lower receiver. Therefore, every time that you fire a round, it will help keep the recoil lower. In Airsoft, it functions the same, but, you know, the recoil, you actually can kind of feel it, but it's not as beneficial as it would seem, because, well, it's Airsoft, and there's minimal gas propelling out the end of the barrel. Now, enough with the real steel history, let's get into some Airsoft history. So this is not the first rendition of the KRISS Vector. There was a gas blowback one designed by KWA that was quickly taken off the market due to licensing issues, and then years later came Krytac's variant. Believe it or not, I've actually got one of those on hand, so if you want a comparison video after this, just let me know in the comments below. Why don't we take a look at all of its funky ergonomics and construction and what you'll see straight out of the box. Now, please don't hold me to this. Maybe somebody in the comments can let me know, but it feels like, even though this entire thing is designed out of some sort of plastic, I believe from reading, this is the same plastic that its real steel counterpart is designed out of, which is super cool, and it should last you a while, being that it can withstand, well, the real thing. Starting from the back, I actually think this will speak to anybody that runs around with the JBL speaker. It comes fitted with a drop stock, sort of, right out of the box. Kind of cool. Actually, like you guys, I'm just messing around. The entire thing is made of plastic, including the butt pad, which isn't super noticeable at first, but it is adjustable via some grub screws on the sides. And then here is your little latching mechanism that you will use to latch it to the side when we fold it, which brings me to my next point. There's your button. This is how you fold the entire thing over the latch right up on this hook on the receiver. Now, some of your other bells and whistles, just in front of the stock is the trigger. Above that is going to be your safety selector switch, which is, believe it or not, ambidextrous. And then a super long rail that houses both of the front and rear iron sights that come with it. And believe it or not, those iron sights are elevation and windage adjustable, which is super cool. They are also made of a plastic, but they don't feel wobbly at all, and as much as I probably will wind up throwing a sight or an optic on here, I'll keep them on just because it's nice to have in case. A little further forward and on the same level as our safety selector, we also have our fire selector switch, which allows us to switch between semi, 2-round burst, which is super unique. No, I love a burst replica, and fun mode. And that, of course, also is ambidextrous. Just in front of the switch on the right side is your ejection port, which is obviously Mach. You can see the bolt moving there, but in this case, the only thing that you're going to be expelling is going to be spent green gas. Which in order to make happen is to be done on the opposite side, where you have your charging handle, which is designed to slowly and easily anchor the bolt back to start, pull it all the way back into place, and then releases and slaps and folds straight to the side back into its resting position. Just below that is going to be your bolt release, catch and release, and then your magazine release, which is not ambidextrous actually, it's on one side, but you can switch it if you so need. Press it, pop out the mag, and there she blows. KRISS Vector also features 4 empty screw ports just behind the barrel, and those are for an added rail that you can add if you so please. I recommend keeping it to just the right side, because if you put it on the left side, chances are you're going to grade your fingers like cheese when you pull that charging handle. It also, just below the barrel, has a small little Picatinny rail in case you want to throw any foregrips, flashlights, or strobes on there. You name it, you can add anything that you see. One thing I'd like to take a look at just before we continue our testing now is the trigger. I know you guys always like to see that, so we'll go ahead and take a look, see if it's any worthwhile. So there's a little bit of loose play at the start, and then a solid wall. Again, a solid break. It's a minimal travel, and then is there any extra travel behind it? No, that's it. Let's see our reset. Decent distance. It throws the finger forward solid. Like, you definitely feel something latch there. Trigger's not all that bad. It's super clicky. I don't know how to explain like super clicky to you. If you've ever fired like the GHM-9G from Lambda Defense, very similar. All right, enough yapping. Let's do some testing. I got some tools that we're going to need that are essential for us to complete these tests, like the speed loader that I've completely loaded with 0.25 gram BBs from Lancer Tactical, and then also a sponsored can of high pressure or green gas, because this is actually technically the equivalent in PSI to red gas, and we're using this because it is around 40 degrees today, like 38, 40 degrees, and of course our Ace Tech chronograph. Go check that out. Military chopper. What, you thought I was just a pew nerd? Okay, we're going to throw the speed loader on, and we'll get our mag and load it on up. If you haven't seen my video on this, you're probably going to want to go check it out. This thing is phenomenal. Just like that, completely loaded and ready to go. Now that she's full, let's take a look at that wild-looking mag. So, realistically, the KRISS Vector is designed to run on Glock mags in the real world. These are proprietary to the Krytac KRISS Vector. They come with an aluminum body, a plastic sleeve. Here is your channel and your feed lips, which are also made of plastic. Your gas router, gas ejection button. Here's your fill valve on the base. And then that's kind of all you need to know. It's got some number labelings on the back for how many rounds are in it, but it holds more than 30, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. So next portion of the video, we're going to test out the KRISS Vector's gas efficiency, and to do so, we are using red gas on a 40-degree day with 0.25 gram BBs all loaded inside of the mag. This is 58 BBs, and what we want to see on different settings, whether it be semi, 2-round burst, or full auto, is how many full mags of BBs we can get through on one single gas fill. Let's fire this thing for the first time. I really hope it fires, because I haven't actually fired this yet. I haven't tested it out. I've just cleaned it, stripped it down, took a look, and everything seems to be okay. And I'm interested to see if it feels anywhat like the KWA Vector at all. So let's start it up. Here we go. 3, safety off, 2, 1. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so the advanced recoil system, you definitely don't feel it coming back in your shoulder at all. but it also doesn't feel like it's dropping down. It more just feels like a lot of rattling going on up by my front hand. Trigger's kind of nice, and you could really rattle off shots like that. It makes me really interested to see what the 2-round burst is going to feel like. All right, so we emptied the mag. It wasn't firing. There's one left. There it is. And that locked the bolt back. Let's load it up again. We successfully cleared one full mag of BBs, which is important. Again, if you're new to this channel, this is another full and perfectly stacked mag on the same gas fill. And we'll see if we can empty a second mag. No. We're not feeding. I don't know if the cold is maybe causing the bolt not to fly all the way back. Oh, no, we're okay. Not anymore. Interesting. Just not feeding. I don't think we're pulling all the way back. I don't know if you can see that too. The bolt is getting kind of stuck there. There we go. Nothing? Did we not set the... Yeah. I heard the gas efficiency on this thing wasn't that great when I was watching some reviews. There are some upgrades aftermarket that they say can fix that, but it seems to be pretty consistent with this thing. Now bear in mind we have another full mag of BBs, this time freshly gassed up, and this is a new one that's been sitting warm inside the house. We're going to try out 2-round burst. Now I don't know if this is something that's consistent with the KRISS Vector's platform or if it was just the KWA Vector, but I vividly remember the 2-round burst functioning almost the same gas efficiency as the semi. Not as bad as like the full auto, which on most replicas the full auto tends to be worse. So far not super impressed. I think the industry standard should be 2 full mags at least. But I know these mags do hold a lot of BBs, but the reservoir has no reason not to be large enough to be able to handle it. Let's take the burst test. I am through and through a burst fan, so I'm really, really excited for this. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. They only shot once. There's the 2. Oh, that feels nice. Now you feel like that downwards force. Oh, that's so cool. More replicas need a burst function. That feels awesome. It's almost like the perfect storm. And it just gasses out. It always likes to leave 1. I don't know why it likes to leave 1. Maybe because it only shot 1 at the beginning of the burst. That's weird, but it totally gassed out the mag, so. Move on to full auto. At least it emptied it. Kinda. And finally, another full mag, freshly gassed and warm out of the house. I gotta say, I don't have high hopes for this. Let's see what the full auto has to say to the KRISS Vector. I'm not gonna burst this. I'm not gonna BS it. I'm just going to lay down the trigger. 3, 2, 1. We stopped firing, so I took it out. The BBs got stuck again. Maybe I have to clean the feed tracks, but I just feel like that's poor QC. That shouldn't be the case. Same issue again. And we were crazy enough able to finish the full mag. I think I could put a few more rounds in there. Fully loaded with BBs and on the same gas fill, I have 0 expectations that we're going to finish this mag or even come remotely close, but we're here. I gotta say, that's better than I thought. Alrighty, let's test out the power output. We've got our chronograph and it is already preset at 0.25 gram BBs. And we're gonna see what kind of power we're looking at of the KRISS Vector. 204 FPS at 0.48 joules. 216 FPS at 0.54 joules. What happened? It's weird. We're having a double feed. Come on, the time to do that was before KRISS Vector, not now. Here we go. 224 FPS at 0.58 joules. 223 FPS at 0.58 joules. 257 FPS at 0.77 joules. 239 FPS at 0.66 joules. Why is it just not resetting? Interesting. That's 200 FPS at 0.47 joules. 217 FPS at 0.55 joules. 231 FPS at 0.67 joules. I'm sorry, 62 joules. Every time. The bolt just isn't resetting properly. I don't understand. It's a double feed. 211.8 FPS at 0.52 joules. And then 212 FPS at 0.52 joules. So, I mean, it's definitely on the lower power, so it'll be all right for CQB. What is it? I just don't understand why the bolt doesn't reset all the way. I had this hop-up turned pretty high up, and before we check out the accuracy, I'm going to make sure the hop-up is set. You can see the standard hop-up bucking that comes with it out of the box is still in there. I went ahead and double-checked that, obviously, and we're probably going to have a double feed to start, so we'll just... Cool. Now what we're going to do is adjust the hop-up. There is a small hole directly in the top center of the rail, just above the first takedown pin, and what's really cool, I don't know if you could hear it, I'll get really close to it. It actually clicks. It's not every day you see a TDC hop-up that it clicks when you adjust it. So we're going to see what kind of a hop-up we're dealing with. I'll go ahead and back up so you can see. A little over hopping, so we're going to come down a notch. Now of course, this mag just does not want to push the BBs up to the top. I don't understand. Actually, that seemed to do the trick just nicely. Okay, so we're out of the woods. We got some smaller head size targets, and of course, the Vector. I'm gonna throw you guys into a POV position, and we'll plink around and test out the accuracy. All right, it's mediocre. When pointed down, obviously, at the lower target, I expected to have some variation because of the hop-up. Maybe I should drop to the floor. Why don't we try and run it in some 2-round bursts? Because I feel like that's going to give us a little bit of benefit. And we'll just try and make contact with each target at least once, and we'll run through it 2 times. We're inside now because I don't want to lose any pieces. We're going to take a look at the insides now. So to take down the KRISS Vector, it's again reminiscent of the real steel variant. There are 3 takedown pins, number 1, number 2, and number 3, in order to split the upper and lower in half. And you should be able to pop those out with just your fingers. Number 2, and number 3, Remember, don't force anything if you don't have to. And then the upper and lower should split in two. So you'll have your lower half and the upper half. Quickly, just to look at the upper half. Now, you remember in the past, earlier in the video, I mentioned that it takes the fire control unit and does a 180 with it. That's because on the KRISS Vector, the fire control unit is actually hanging from the ceiling with the upper receiver. Whereas usually the blowback unit is in the upper receiver on regular platforms, and the fire control unit is in the lower receiver. It is totally backwards. So this is your hammer system. Now this system is completely, it's locked in there. It's super complex, and it's probably a pain to take apart. So I'm not going to take it apart because I don't really know how to, and I don't want to risk that until I increase my knowledge on it. Here is your lower, and you can see a few of the cool components. This is your TDC hop-up dial. You can go ahead and click that around if you want. Now here's that advanced recoil system we spoke about. You can see the spring down in the lower half, sitting almost like a 45 degree, almost like vertical. And here is your nozzle and the nozzle housing. When the bolt pulls back, the nozzle housing with two bearings pushes up against these risen platforms. And you can see it drives the advanced blowback system and the recoil down into the lower half of the replica. The nozzle doesn't actually drop downwards. On the KWA Vector, it drops down a little bit, which is super cool. This one, on the other hand, just pushes the recoil system down, but the nozzle travels forward and backwards like any regular replica. The recoil system is just a little bit different. Now you can actually take that recoil system down. Just be careful because this plate will now be under spring tension by pressing downwards and pulling this pin out the side. And then just like that, out pops your recoil system. You can see it's under spring tension. It's got these two rubber buffers. You can see the channels at which the bearings from the blowback housing ride on top of this little risen platform, and I gotta be honest, it's a little bit like rough. It's not smooth to the touch at all, which concerns me, and you could see the wear on it is not even as well. There's like some, it's actually kind of like sharp there. That's not cool. I wonder if that'll smooth out over time. If I can get like, yeah, you see how it like kind of like some like sharp edges there, and it doesn't wear down smoothly either. I don't know, maybe we can zoom in on that. It's like the pitting. If we go a little further, you can actually drop the bolt out the back too. Just gotta pop right out, and be careful because those bearings are just sitting there friction fitted. They are not pinned in at all. And there is your blowback housing. It is a metal blowback housing with a plastic nozzle. It is under spring tension. The nozzle is small. Blowback housing feels pretty solid. Just want to take a look at the wheels, because the wheels are what are causing that damage to those two risen plates. They seem fine. The plates just seem like they're the problem, if I'm being totally honest. Again, just for reference, this is where these bearings roll up against, and that compresses it downwards. Alright, I'm going to throw this all back together. Just be careful with your bearings and whatnot. Reverse engineer it. Those should slide into place nice and snug. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you as I'm kind of reassembling it, the KRISS Vector is actually a metal body. It's just encased in plastic. The inside of it is actually this entire like metal sleeves, this metal casing on the inside. So it's not actually just a plastic lower and plastic upper. The lower is just plastic around metal. The upper, on the other hand, is just plastic. And the plastic isn't bad per se. It's actually pretty solid. Feels sturdy in the hands, but just be careful, because I know like certain things like these little edges, when the pin goes through, if it's not directly in and you try and force it, you could crack these, so just be careful. Just going to finish putting the entire thing back together nice and slowly, and then we're going to take this outside and we'll kind of do a final thoughts on it, and I'll let you know if this is a viable option to add to your arsenal, and then also kind of replace the KWA Vector that we all know, love, and dream for. All in all, the Krytac KRISS Vector, I mean, the build construction feels rock solid. There is no movement between the upper and lower. The parts don't feel weak or rattly or mobile. Of this coming off a little bit, maybe want some Loctite on there. The stock is honestly solid for what I would expect. It feels great in the hands. However, it does have some drawbacks. The gas efficiency or its capability to finish mags, especially in a cooler climate, is negative. The mags, maybe some quality issues when it comes to the feed tracks, because, you know, they just are, the BB's getting caught up somewhere. It's definitely up towards the top somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where that is. The KRISS Vector as well, it's not the most accurate thing in the world. And being it has such a small, like, inner barrel, I understand that. Maybe a better bucking can change that. It's definitely going to be fine for CQB, but something longer range, you're going to want a different bucking and a different barrel. The barrel itself is nice and stable. It's solid, so that shouldn't be a problem. It's just out of the box, you're not going to be hitting things at HPA, M4, or sniper range for that matter. Absolutely, for sure, props to them for sticking with that authentic KRISS Vector, you know, bolt dropping motion or the advanced recoil system. I absolutely love to see that. It's just something different, and to complete that in Airsoft, just it deserves some props, because that's not something easy to do. Are there some QC issues there as well? When we opened it up, sure, it's definitely got some, you know, minor issues that could be fixed, and there's a couple channels out there that have covered that a little bit better than I will be able to, just because I am not as well versed or as intelligent on the platform as they are. But overall, the thing, it works. I personally think the KWA Vector's performance out of the box is better. I think its quality control is better. I think it will last longer. But being that they're more expensive and that they are harder to come by and that parts to replace it are few and minimal, and even mags are hard to get a hold of, this is your only other option. The Krytac KRISS Vector. Hope you had a fun time. Let me know what you think of the review. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to do a comparison between this guy and the KWA variant as well, in case anybody's interested. I'll catch you on the next adventure. Peace.